For the past 6 months, I've been trying to gather some parts to put together this Keith Black block. I, I'm not totally successful yet, but I'm trying. But so I thought we ought to go over what's going to be different putting together an aluminum block as opposed to the cast iron. We already did the cast iron block in the last series, so what's going to be different about this one? And I guess this would apply to other aluminum blocks as well. So let's talk about what's going to be different. Now the first thing you're going to say is trivial, but it's not for me. You don't have to paint it. Now I know you're thinking, well, that's just a can of spray paint in 30 minutes or whatever, but no, not for me. It takes me all day because I paint with a brush, and you got to scrub, scrub, scrub to get it perfectly clean, and then you have to put it on just right. And while you've got it perfectly clean, of course, everything else is trying to rust, and you're trying to get paint on it. It's not easy. I know you think it is, but it's not for me. So, number one, no paint. Number two, you don't fight rust in the entire build process. You know, you're trying to keep things clean, and everything's trying to rust on you. So, it's a big advantage, the aluminum part. And really the same goes with painting the gliptol in the lifter valley, which you don't even have to do. And I paint the bell housing area, and you don't have to do that. Nobody's going to see it. If it rusts, it's not going to hurt anything, but I want to paint that. And of course, that's another day for me to paint the... And you can't, spray it with lacquer thinner to clean it up when you're doing the gliptol because you've already painted the outside and you don't want to get lacquer thinner on your new paint. So that's a big deal. Now the oil pickup, of course, Keith Black does not have provision for oil pickup, and the Bill Mitchell does, but this is real priority oiling. The oil goes in here and then it comes down this oil galley and goes straight to the main. So this is great oiling. I don't know how you can get much better, but so you don't have the internal oil pickup provision. It's not a big deal. You can still use any pump, works. You just have to have an external line to your oil pan, or dual line, whatever you prefer. But if you want, you can just stick the stock pump on there with somebody's top cover, which this is the Myodon. I prefer the billet Myodon. It just one less place to leak. And if the rear outlet to your pan doesn't work for you, they've got that other part number that's got the outlet in the top, and then you can go that way. Sometimes motor mounts, headers, whatever gets in the way, you have to make some changes. So, actually, I put that. So, the oiling system, nice, but you're going to have to run somebody's top cover on whatever pump you decide to use. The motor mounts are, for those of you who worry about oil leaks or vacuum leaks in the motor mount holes, the motor mount holes are blind, so you won't leak oil or vacuum there. So that's good, I guess. The freeze plugs, now this is a big deal to me. Now you've probably never had a freeze plug blowout. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but just Mopar Joe on YouTube built a low block 512 for his 68 Barracuda bracket car the other day, and first hit blew a freeze plug out. That was kind of depressing. So this is mo better, in my opinion. I like the screw-in freeze plugs. I wish the regular 426 Hemis had screw-in freeze plugs like the old 427 Fords. You saw those big pipe plugs with the square for loosening and tightening. I always thought that was better than these. I've always worried about blowing one of these out, even though I haven't done it. That doesn't matter. I still worry about it. I took off one of these caps the other day just to check them to see, kind of how they fit, and they fit absolutely perfect. The amount of interference. The last 3 blocks I've had were way, way, way too tight trying to pull those caps off. Now I don't like the big caps that everybody puts on nowadays where they stick above the pan rail. They think we're all running top fuel, and actually we're not running top fuel. And the old caps works fine for us, but they think this is better, so at least we can get parts. So I'm not going to gripe a whole lot. The rear main is made in one piece, so better or worse, I don't know. Let's call it better. We always thought that stock Chrysler one was kind of cheesy anyway. So that should work good. And it's got a rubber seal here, which hopefully will be good as far as leaks go. We'll call that an improvement. The deburring, the block is very well deburred. You won't have to do much. There's some peach fuzz on the inside, which is absolutely terrible. You don't want that. But that's just part of building a motor. You're supposed to wipe all that stuff out. You got to clean this thing up. I'll show you something after a while about that. Now let's look at the top, and we'll go over the steam holes. Okay, the steam holes are in a slightly different place from the stock steam holes. So they sell Cometic gaskets for these blocks, so it's not a big deal. Most everybody runs Cometics, so it's not a big deal. Just make sure that you realize that you have to get some gaskets that aren't the normal gasket. The KB studs are also very sexy, the way they've got a little bullet nose on them, so you can run them down, and that's kind of a race thing. I know ARP says you're just supposed to screw them in finger tight, but it shifts the stud when you do that. Most of the things up here are pretty standard for you. They now have oil to the lifters for those people that like that or need that. For the last 30 years, they were just dry and splash lubricated. But this makes it a little better for some folks. There is a provision back here to run a dry sump for those people that like to run dry sump oil back here instead of coming into the normal port that you run it in. I know you're not going to be able to see this well, but I'm going to take a photo and see if I can get you a better picture of it. But when anything is cast, you're going to have to do something to make the finish look better when it comes out of the casting. Bit large items like this are normally blasted. They're too big to go in a vibratory finisher. So they blast the blocks. Well, that's fine. But they're probably blasting this with stainless shot, I think. But what happens is you get shot in the water jackets. They're not, all the oil passages are machined, so no shot got in there. But in the water jackets, it does get shot, and it's kind of up to you to get it out, even though it's not like it's in the oil. Little shot is bad. It's just bad, and it can get in strange places later on. So you're going to have to spend a little time, and I'm not knocking Keith Black's for this. It's just part of the foundry process and part of you cleaning it up before you put it together. Now, stainless shot, you would think it's not magnetic, and I haven't tried to take this out with a magnet. But if it's 304 or 302, might be able to get some of it with that. But you also have to do a bunch of washing, trying to get it out. I wonder if I'm getting any. Yeah, that's good. I thought it would have been 302 or 304 instead of 316, which wouldn't be magnetic. And so you're going to have to get in these water jackets best you can and try to go way down there to the bottom and try to get it all out. You know what I mean? I'll try to get you a photo of that so you can see what I'm talking about. It's terrible. I mean, what could possibly be worse in your oil system? Small enough to go through the screen, small enough to go through the pump. Just really, 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 really evil stuff. So, spend some time getting this clean. Wash this out about 10 or 20 times and stick the magnet in every hole that goes down into the water jackets. And hopefully, look at that. Wow. Yeah. Spend some time on this. But I just wanted to warn you about that. But you're supposed to be checking all these threads anyway, We've been over this thread thing before. You need to be checking every thread before you try to put something together. Well, I don't know, this is an oil passage. Did I get, ooh, that stuff's already got in there. Bad. Spend some time on this. Don't cut yourself short. Okay. Now let's talk about the ridiculous parts situation. There's a couple of things I forgot on these block differences between the cast iron and AB block. I'm not sure about the Bill Mitchell block. The motor mount here is different. This hole had to be dropped down because of the oil galley here. I thought I saw a print at one time that told me exactly how much. If you have regular car motor brackets, you can just re-drill the hole. It won't be a problem. I don't think my motor brackets are going to work. I may have to fab a new one. But so I'll have to make a new motor bracket for this side. And if I come up with a number, I'll mention what that number was. When I make that bracket, I'm going to have to do some measurements and try to figure that out. So that's one of the things I forgot to talk about. And we're back to the KB dowel pin issue. I don't know at what point they started drilling these things for 250 dowels. This is a Mopar dowel, which is 246. And I want 246 for obvious reasons. You've had problems taking your timing cover off already because the size of the hole. And so what I guess I'm going to have to do, and by the way, it's the same in the heads. They're drilled for 250 dowels, and they give you dowels for this and this, but it's 250. And I've had one of these blocks before with 250 dowels, and needless to say, that pair of heads didn't go on, and neither did the other pair of heads I had. But I can fix this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to order some tool steel from McMaster Car and make the bottom that goes in the block the proper size and the head, and then what sticks out, I've got a little lathe, and I'll machine it for 246. So then the heads will go on, and your heads may go on with 250s, but that's no guarantee that your next set will. And I don't want to ream heads because now I've made bad heads to go on something that wasn't its fault. I've got a heat treat oven, but I don't think it's necessary. If I buy tool steel, I think I can get some 130,000 psi that's machinable, and that will tolerate the tapping of me putting them in. So I think that's going to be okay. But I've got to make some dowels, and I've got to make a new bracket for this motor mount. This may not be an issue for you. You may be on motor plates. You may not be using stock brackets anyway, but you still have to mention it. And when I make my new bracket, I'll give you the number of how far down to drill. I told you I've been looking for parts for 6 months to put this thing together. I wanted to put as many Keith Black parts as I could find, just because, you know, I think I just probably trying to just make my life miserable, but I'm not sure. There used to be a guy in Chattanooga who had used top fuel parts, and he would have valve covers and gear drives and oil pumps, but he died, I think, and now I don't know who deals in that kind of stuff. I get on Racing Junk, but I can't seem to find it there. But so one of the items I picked up, of course I want a gear drive just because, and I wanted to keep Black gear drive. So I got this one just to cover. I figured I could find the guts, but well, you know what happened. It's for a raised cam, so I've got nothing. But surely, I don't know why I haven't been able to find one. My luck's just not going real good right now. But you know, you want to. I mean, it's right on the front of the motor. You want to keep Black gear drive. There's lots of them out there. It's not like I'm looking for something that's really hard to find. But I would like to find the proper one of these. I'd like to find. I've been searching valve covers and I found some, and that's all good. But just I hadn't found the kind of configuration I want. I saw a nice set at Carlisle, but they were 16 plug, and I don't have 16 plugs. I would, and I kind of want shiny. You know, Mopar guys like bling. You know, so I want shiny. Maybe something I can polish or have polished if I don't know that I'm real good at that, but I know somebody who is. But I'd like to have some nice Keith Black valve covers, and I'll show you what I've got for a head, but there's a few different configurations on heads, and we'll go over that in a minute. The Keith Black oil pump. It says Keith Black on it. I want that, even though it may not even work in this application. You know, they're made for top fuel. They've got big long rotors. Sure, they would work fine on the test stand, but if you actually tried to drive one, I'm afraid you're going to make too much oil volume. You know, in your mind, you're thinking you can just adjust that spring and get it down to where you want, but I think when you get some RPMs, you're going to find out you got a lot of oil volume and no place for it to go, and you're just going to be running bypass mode all the time. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I think the later pump, Keith Black pump, had 1 3/8 rotors instead of 1.5 inches. The one I've got is 1.5 inches. So I think I need one that's got shorter rotors in it. That would be nice. Keith Black rocker stands were sold through Mopar, for years. There might be some NOS ones of those laying around, or some nice used ones. They're those blue anodized ones. So that'd be a good thing for me to score on. Uh, his chrome shafts were my favorites, and there might be some of those somewhere. But I just want to get as many Keith Black parts as I can, just because it kind of goes with the theme on this build, you know. What I think I'll do eventually is I'm just going to have to draw a line in the sand and say this is a cutoff date, whatever I can find by this date, probably March or April, and then I'll just have to put it together with however many Keith Black items I can come up with. I don't know what else to do. I spend a lot of time looking, and I want what I want, just like everybody else, you know? This is a KB head. It's a new one, but they came in several different configurations. They came in the stock 16-bolt intake, and they came in this 5-bolt intake. They came with a raised exhaust port, and then they came with like a D6 exhaust port, which is a raised D port. I need a set of heads to put on that thing. Probably need this configuration. Otherwise, I'd be so limited on what I could find for an intake manifold. It would get nearly impossible. And I could do with the raised exhaust port, or I could get with the D exhaust port. I know it's going to be a big hassle trying to use these. And I'm not even going to tell you they run good. I mean, I don't know. You know, they're not exactly street heads. But I want them, you know. Man wants what he wants. So this is what I'm having the most problem. I did find a set on Racing Junk. My problem is I don't get on there every day. I got it on there once a week, maybe. And they had already been sold, and they were the perfect configuration for me. Oh, by the way, there's a lot of these heads that don't have water, so to speak. They will hold some water, and there's people that try to put the water in through the freeze plug here, and then out the bottom of the block through the either the block drain or the freeze plug. But you can't use those on any kind of normal car that has a water pump. There's nothing here. There's no way for the water ever to leave the engine. So you'd be running dead water, which would be fine for a couple of minutes on alcohol or something, but I'm not on alcohol, and I want to run more than a couple minutes. So I need some water heads with the regular water jackets, 16-volt intake, and I can go with either exhaust port. But that's been a challenge. It's a shame I didn't get those ones on Racing Junk, but I just didn't get them. So that's my sad story of the day on these. So I'll keep looking for parts, and whatever I can come up with by spring, we'll put this thing together. Probably as a 572. Probably be using, I'm guessing, Cali's cranking rods, just because it's not going to be a cheap project, so we might as well, you know, go for the good stuff.